Hello and welcome to SOS India's knowledge session on child abuse. I'm Bhumika and today we are talking to our child protection expert and advocacy head Archana Dhar. Welcome Archana.
Thank you.
I would like you to start by sharing a little about your journey with SOS India.
Well, let me begin that I have about 25 years of experience in the social development sector, but specifically with SOS India, I've been there for last 18 years and I've worn different hats. I came in the fundraising for setting up corporate fundraising, then I shifted on to advocacy, did a lot of work on the JJ Act amendments, and I'm also the national focal person for child protection, and quite recently also head the program Quality and Impact Unit.
Okay. So our followers had some queries, so we would like to discuss those queries with you during the session. So I'll begin with the first question. What are the types of child abuse?
See, if you look at the classical definition of child abuse, then child abuse is a state of emotional, physical, economic, and sexual maltreatment meted out to any person below the age of 18 years. And child abuse, if you look at the policy and the various literature which is available, there are different kinds of child abuses. There is sexual abuse, there is physical abuse, there is emotional abuse, and there is neglect. And each one of them have different definitions. And the only thing I want to flag off here is that when we look at maybe sexual abuse and physical abuse, it's not only intervention which has to happen at the physical level, because that's where the child has really been abused, but it's also you have to look at the emotional well-being of the child, because abuse has an impact both emotionally as well as in certain kinds of abuses on the body itself.
Okay.
So when interventions are planned for healing the child, it has to be looked at both the levels.
Yes. So the next question that we have is, what are the impacts of child abuse on the child?
Well, child abuse has a tremendous amount of negative impact on the child, and if not treated, can really make him not a contributing member of the society, and that's what our aim is, that this child grows up to be a whole person. And the impacts can be on the physical level, so it needs immediate action in terms of you need to see a doctor, you need to address the wounds that the child is having, but a lot of it happens at the cognitive level and a lot of it happens at the mental and emotional level of the child. And the symptoms can be the child will be very withdrawn, the child will not be himself, the child might have a lot of anxiety, might have depression, will not be mixing the children around, they can be bedwetting, as symptom of something has happened to the child. The child will have very low self-esteem. So the idea is whenever a child is subjected to any kind of abuse, there's a lot of mental agony the child is subjected to, and that needs to be treated, and that's an ongoing process. It cannot be one of the activities like counseling, but it has to be consistent counseling support extended to the child so that he's able to come out of this trauma and be a well-adjusted human being and carry on with his life. So child abuse has to be dealt at very different levels.
Yes. So another question that one of the followers has asked is, how can I make report of abuse if I see child abuse in my neighborhood? Please share the steps.
When in the community a child abuse is happening, so we have different kinds of structures in the community. For example, there are lots of laws which are laid down. They say that in a community level you need to have a village child protection committee whose head is the Gram Panchayat, and there are different members of the committee. So if that is functional in a community, ideally one should go and report there. And then there is the child line number which is available and it's funded by the government, so you can approach a child line number and say what the problem is. And if it is a POXO case, if it is a sexual abuse case, you just directly have to file an FIR with the police, and you can also inform the child welfare committees in the district. So these are the various ways that you go. But in SOS Children's Villages of India, we have a very detailed policy which talks about what are the different kinds of structures through which reporting happens and through which responding happens. We have people who have assigned this job, in terms of reporting any child protection violation or case which comes into the fold, and then we have a reporting and responding fairly robust reporting and responding mechanism.
What happens to the child if the report is proven positive?
So you mean to say when the report is proven positive means abuse has happened.
Yeah.
So if it's in a community, you need to inform the relevant authorities. For example, the child welfare committees. You need to, if it's a severe case of abuse like a sexual abuse, you need to file an FIR with the police. You can inform Childline, whose number is everywhere else. But in a setup like ours, we have guidelines to sort of report, to whom to report, and what kind of an abuse it is, and investigation happens. And then if need be, we also follow the process of informing the CWC and informing the filing a FIR if the case is like a sexual abuse. And on the victim, the child, you need to do interventions which will heal the child. So a constant counseling support has to be provided to the child, and you have to see where the abuse has happened. If it has happened inside the community and a family, then the child needs to be removed to a place of safety. So that can be done only when you inform the local authorities like the child welfare committees.
Yes. How to ensure that the child is aware of different types of abuses?
You have to do lots of awareness programs in the community. For example, it has to be done you have to catch the attention of all the children, their families, on mass media. You have to talk about it. You have to talk about what kind of abuses are there, who are the possible victims, who are the possible perpetrators. So a lot of information has to be available at the click of a mouse. And for organizations like us, we have very detailed modules developed in terms of prevention module. How do you raise the awareness of the child so that he can protect himself from dangers which are within the community and outside the home and inside the home, And we can do lots of activities with children to be able to tell them that if these are the possibilities where you could be in danger, and if in danger, whom to report to, where to go, and things like that. So a lot of awareness generation programs and a lot of activities on prevention of abuse needs to be done. And then there should be a robust reporting and responding mechanism available in the community, in institutional setups or facilities like the SOS Children's Villages, so that child knows where to go and how to report. So these should be available to the child. Information should be available. The toll-free number should be available to the child. This is where he goes if he requires help, and if it's not available in the setup that he is living in or staying in.
Moving on to the last two questions. How to gain a child's confidence so that he or she is able to share the abuse with a responsible adult?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, the child should have trust in the person, and there's a lot of rapport building, which has to be done wherever the child is living. And the child should also know that there's going to be confidentiality about whatever he's going to share with the person. And the child should trust the system. The child should know that if I report, it will get heard and actions will follow. So a robust reporting and responding mechanisms should be in place, whether in the community, whether in an institution, whether anywhere that the child is residing. So once that child has that confidence that whatever he says will be heard is when the child will come forward and report any case of abuse. Otherwise, he's not going to do that.
So the last question that we have is, are there any legislative or criminal justice strategies that are successfully holding child abuse offenders accountable?
I think it's very important to note that in India in 2007 the WCD ministry did a study on which covered about 13 states, and they did a study on school going children and the kind of abuses the children went through. These are children from regular families, and it was astonishing that more than 50% of the children reported abuse. Both boys and girls reported abuse. And having once that study came into the public domain, the government woke up and thought of having this very comprehensive law called the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences, POCSO. And it came into being in 2012, and it details out completely the kind of punishments and the kind of, it details out the sexual offense against children completely, and it's very comprehensive. It looks at not only offenses where there is physical contact, but also other kinds of offenses which have a sexual intent. For example, sending lewd messages, pornography, and things like that. And it's a very comprehensive law, and it is it's anybody for organizations like SOS and any other facility which houses children, it's mandatory reporting within 24 hours. That if it's a sexual offense case, we have to report to the required authorities. An FIR has to be filed. It is mandatory reporting, and very detailed law which is come into. So that's one of the things that I would like to sort of talk about, and we should read this law, and it's extremely detailed, very comprehensive, and deals with children completely.
Okay. Thank you so much, Archana. Thanks for sharing
Thank
your
you. It was
experiences
lovely
and
talking
your
to you.
knowledge with us. Thank you so
Thank you so much.